people don't buy two tomorrow because they didn't have their product yesterday. So it's lost revenue. So when operators take the time to focus on getting the internal operations of their business right, all of a sudden that frees them up. There's all kinds of things that you can do as an operator to grow the business when you don't have to worry about running the business.
Hi, welcome to the Unattended Edge. I'm your host, Staci Ryan. On the Unattended Edge, we'll chat with industry experts to go over best practices, tips, and insights to keep you on the cutting edge of unattended retail. Our guests cover a range of topics, keeping you up to date on trends, technology, and how it applies to your operation. Thanks to Neil and the team at GoGo Refresh for allowing me to host this exciting season of the Unattended Edge. Thanks for joining us on this pilot episode, David.
It is my pleasure, and it's an honor to be the first guest on this new podcast. So thank you very much for having me.
He's well known in the industry, but for those of you that might not know David Marler, he is with Lightspeed and has been a vital part of this industry for years. I'm just going to hand over the mic to him for a second, let him kind of introduce himself and how he came to be where he is and how what he's done has positively impacted many of you who are watching right now.
I don't know if I can live up to that introduction, but I will tell you how long I've been in this industry and how I got started. So Randy Smith, who was the founder of Lightspeed, and I have known each other for 35 years. And back in 2014, Randy convinced me to come join him at Lightspeed, which for those of you who don't know, Lightspeed is warehouse automation. We make the order fulfillment process in the warehouse a lot more efficient. And in 2021, June of 2021, we sold to 365 retail markets, and we've been a part of their 365 family since then. So my area of expertise has been in the warehouse, helping hundreds and hundreds of operators organize their warehouses and get them to the point where they become very efficient. And then obviously using the Lightspeed technology on top of that has actually helped an enormous number of our customers grow and become a lot more profitable. So that is the short version of why I'm here. And again, thank you very much for having me on this inaugural version of the Cutting Edge.
Sure thing. Yeah, I remember, my family owned an operating company, and I remember when just down the street from us, we were in Atlanta. You guys came to our warehouse and put up all the racking, and we went from picking off paper to lights, and it was a huge game changer. So that was many years ago, and you're still doing it out there.
For at least another year or two.
Okay. Is that a hint towards future endeavors, or?
We all get old.
Hey guys, thanks for taking time to watch our first episode of The Unattended Edge. I just wanted to take a quick pause and spend a little bit of time getting to know your wonderful host, Staci.
Hi, I'm Staci Ryan, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself and my company, Convenience Brigade. I'm a second-generation operator turned software support and operations consultant. After 30 years in the business, my family sold our operating company several years ago, at which point I realized the opportunity was there to help other operators optimize their VMSs and create efficiencies within their operations. Whether it's merchandising, route optimization, platform conversion, or financial performance analysis, my skilled team does it all. My team consists of longtime industry veterans who have seen it all, as well as the brigade. The brigade is my data team. It's built of military spouses that I've met over the years as I've followed my own active duty husband from post to post. These spouses are educated, talented, eager, but often find it difficult to maintain meaningful employment due to the fact that we move every couple of years. But no matter where the Army sends us, Convenience Brigade follows. My team will help your organization review, plan, and execute your goals. With our proven history of adding margin to the bottom line, Convenience Brigade has success stories from coast to coast with operators large and small. Let us know what projects you've had on the back burner, and let us help do the heavy lifting to help you get to where you want to be. So in this last several years, many things have changed, but more changes on the horizon with AI and becoming more data driven. Any thoughts on what you see or have heard chatter about things that may be coming?
I personally think that we are about to go through another explosion in our industry, very similar to what the micro market craze was. I mean, if you go back, and Stacy, you lived this, right? You remember when everybody was all cash and then credit card readers came out, and that was crazy technology. Who would ever use a credit card machine to buy a soft drink at a machine? And then from there, it migrated into obviously the key micro markets between Joe Hessling and Jim Britton. They brought a whole new level of refreshments to the workplace, and I think we are about to see that next explosion with the smart store solutions and how AI plays a role in that. And again, real quickly, a smart store solution is kind of like an Amazon in a box, where you have computer vision cameras inside of a glass front machine with AI on the back end recognizing what that product is. So there's no more having to make a specific selection on a vending machine to get a particular product. You can open the door and do all of your shopping, and whatever you take out will be automatically charged to your card. And the reason I feel like that we're there is there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, the industry is not back to pre-COVID office participation. I have yet to talk to any of my customers that can say without a doubt their office business is back 100%. Most offices are on some type of hybrid work, 3 days in, 2 days off, 4 in, 1 off. So, and I don't know if we'll ever go back to that. The Gen Z people that are into the workplace now don't know any other way to work than some type of hybrid. And I don't know if they'll ever come back at 100%. So that's the first reason that the micro market opportunities are going to taper off, in my opinion, not go away, but they'll slow down based on where they were 3 years ago. And the other reason for it is the smart source solution does a couple things for operators. Number one, it reduces the theft and it almost eliminates it. The early data from our equipment, the lift in sales is fairly dramatic, to the point in some cases we're seeing $20,000 in annual sales out of a Pico CV cooler, which is 4 or 5x what a traditional vending machine is. But the other piece that's really exciting is it allows our operators to get into non-traditional locations with non-traditional products. We're seeing a huge growth in residential, student housing, and we're seeing a large influx of what I would consider to be non-traditional products for us. Washing powders and gallons of milk and things that you would buy at a store that are now conveniently located in your apartment complex or your condo complex. So anyway, those are some of the reasons why I think we are about to go through another huge revolution in our industry, very similar to what the micro markets were.
That was the word that I had in mind. It feels like a revolutionary shift, just like we saw when VMS came along, and then you have micro markets, and it's another turning point in the industry positively for consumer engagement.
Very much so.
It's exciting. And there are, new things coming along, but also just wanted to talk about the tried and true proven things that you have instituted with Lightspeed and helped operators gain those warehouse efficiencies over the years. So, technology is moving forward, but we also have technologies that are tried and true that many operators are using right now or are looking at, and wanted to touch on a quote that I've heard you say before, which is the warehouse is a line of scrimmage, and how important that is to your entire operation. And rolling warehouses on trucks are, the old school way, and pre-kitting and tying that into Lightspeed are, the way of the current and the future. And what I can see is how much of a difference and a lift in efficiency it makes for operators. Can you go ahead and tell us what kind of impact does pre-kitting have on an operator?
Would love to. That is one of my favorite topics. I have long believed that an operator cannot run a successful, profitable business if his warehouse looks like it's run by a 2-year-old toddler. You cannot, I don't care what your markets are, I don't care what kind of assets you have in the field. If you can't properly pick the right product and the right quantities to get it to that asset, it doesn't matter how much time you spend on planograms and merchandising. If you can't execute basic elementary fundamentals of getting the product from point A to point B to be sold. So when you actually stop and take the time to look at your internal operations inside of your warehouse, if the warehouse is properly laid out, it's organized, you have really good product rotation, you have mapped the products internally so that the whatever pre-kitting solution, and obviously I hope you pick Lightspeed, but there's others out there. As long as you know the system knows where the product is, you're able to send your employees through that warehouse in a systematic manner, not missing any products. Because we all know, and you know this from your days in the vending business, Staci, an empty spiral means lost revenue. People don't buy two tomorrow because they didn't have their product yesterday. So it's lost revenue. So when operators take the time to focus on getting the internal operations of their business right, all of a sudden that frees them up to take a look at the merchandising tools inside of VMSs and say, hey, maybe if we make this tweak, we can increase our sales by swapping this product for that product, or adding 10% to the price because the price is going to, there's all kinds of things that you can do as an operator to grow the business when you don't have to worry about running the business. And that's, in my opinion, where pre-kitting comes in.
And it sounds to go along with that it gives the management more control over, let's say you're out of stock on a certain item and someone in the warehouse isn't determining, hey, let's put a candy bar in a cracker spiral. And you have that control to make sure your pricing is right, your costs are accurate. Does that sound like another efficiency gain there?
I could spend the next hour telling you stories of operators who have just been mortified to find out they had a $4 bag of beef jerky and a vending spiral that had a $1 price tag on it. And that's that lack of control and lack of visibility that you're talking about from the operator standpoint, when they don't know, they don't have the product in stock, and somebody in the warehouse decides to randomly change and swap a product out that doesn't know what they're doing. And from the VMS all the way to pre-kitting, there are tools there to keep that from happening, as long as the operator will take the time to do it. And you mentioned data earlier. Data plays a big piece in all this, right? Because the data is being fed into the VMS and all of it is there if the operator just takes the time to look at it and understands what they're looking at and then make the necessary changes. Because you can get overwhelmed with data. All you have to do is go to Chat GPT and ask it a few questions, and the next thing you know, you've got 8 pages of data and you don't really know where to start. Whereas a VMS, which is your world, can actually help make that process easier, provided the data is accurate. And therein lies the biggest problem for a lot of operators.
Quick sponsor's message to help pay the bills.
Running a refreshment company isn't easy. Hundreds of locations, thousands of machines, and tens of thousands of customers. Add frustrated facility managers and busy route drivers, and communication gets messy. Meet Zippy Assist, the communication platform built for refreshment operators. Customers text their issue. Zippy Assist captures it in the dashboard, responds automatically, and routes service instantly. Deliver better service and grow your revenue. Try Zippy Assist free today.
So speaking of data and managing a software like this, what's the heavy lift on someone who is not on pre-kitting now, but wants to get onto pre-kitting, is considering it, and what's the payoff? What's the ROI they can expect to see to make that effort?
Step one, a clean database. I cannot tell you how many times we get ready to install Lightspeed, and their database is, they've been using the same VMS for 15 years and they've never removed the product from it. So you've got 9,000 products in a VMS, of which 8,000 are not being used. So
I'm laughing because it's so true.
You know firsthand because you deal with that.
I do. And then you've got 16 different variations of all the Mountain Dew flavors spelled differently with hyphens and periods. I get what you're saying.
So I can't stress how important having a clean database is. And then the second thing, which is also your world, is you've got to be planogram compliant. You've got to make sure you know what's being sold in every machine, in every market, and each slot, because otherwise you can look at a machine, and if you think flaming hot Cheetos are in A1 and it's actually sour cream and onion lays, you're going to be making decisions based on the wrong data. So clean database and being planogram compliant are the first two steps that have to be there before you put Lightspeed in, because otherwise we're going to be pre-kitting the wrong product, because we only take orders from the VMS. And if A1 really is flaming hot Cheetos and you need 9, you do not want Lightspeed to pick sour cream and onion. So those two things have to be there first. And the second part of your question, we on an average see about a 25% reduction in not only in routes, but also in labor when you start pre-kitting. So if you're running 10 routes, on average, you'll take 2 of those routes off the road, because now your drivers can go to more stops because they're not going in twice, they're only going in once. They pull up, they pull their totes off the back, they go in the service machine to go back and move on. Number one. Number two, the other huge impact is your cost of goods sold will go down, because you're not spoiling as much product because it's rolling around a city on the back of the truck. And the product rotation is better. You don't have to buy as much. And because you don't have to buy as much, you're not throwing as much away.
Route reduction and cost of goods, that's money that goes right to the operator's bottom line.
100%.
That's, what I like to call low-hanging fruit in this industry. If you aren't pre-kitting, you're not on a VMS, it's low-hanging fruit and a great opportunity to put more money directly to your bottom line. So that's very exciting. And then, getting my company, one of the things that we do is help operators get ready to take the next step, to get on a VMS, or if they're already on a VMS, to get on to pre-kitting and get the rolling warehouses out of those trucks. So can you talk a little bit about the pre-work that would need to go into getting ready to go to pre-kitting, the totes and carts and the design of the warehouse layout? Once you get into this, it feels like there's a lot to do here, but I'm sure that's something that your team supports operators on, and you have probably seen warehouses of every shape and size across the country and have some great ideas on how to set this up, and just helping operators who may feel a little bit overwhelmed with, I don't know if I can pull this off on my own.
I've never been in 2 warehouses that were the same. Every single one of them is different. They're different sizes, different product mix. I literally had I had a call with an operator today, a great customer, who was talking to another one of my customers because they were doing an analysis on their beverage SKUs. And the reason they were doing this analysis was there's no more acquisition expansion in their territory. So they're having to do a deep dive on how can we increase sales by changing our product mix. They were comparing beverage SKUs. One operator had 72 beverage SKUs. The other one had 172 beverage SKUs. And as they started going through their numbers and comparing data, the company that had 172, 2 of their top 10, the other operator didn't carry at all in the entire building. And the reason I bring that up is because every warehouse is unique and different, and their product mix is unique and different. There is no cookie cutter. This is what everybody does to be successful in pre-kitting in your warehouse. So once the first 2 things get done that we talked about, a clean database and being planogram compliant, the third step is to make sure the warehouse is organized. And as we separate the warehouse, there's a couple of things that I want to point out. Depending on dock doors and where the trucks get loaded, and you want to make sure that you're touching the product as little as possible once it hits your dock. So you want it to go from a back stock to the pre-kit line to the truck in the shortest number of steps possible. You don't want to be bringing in product and taking it all the way to one end of the warehouse, only to bring it all the way back to pre-kit it, and then take it all the way back to where it has to be loaded by the truck. So the first thing we look at is product flow through the warehouse. And again, every single warehouse I've ever been in, and there's hundreds and hundreds of them, have all been different. The second thing is, once you've got that product flow done, now you want a dedicated pre-kit area, because that's where you can control two things. One, the number of steps that your employees are taking to pre-kit that order, because you don't ever want to pick off a pallet unless it's a high volume beverage item. You don't want to go from a pallet of Snickers to a pallet of M&Ms to a pallet of chips. You want those items to be on shelves so you can touch a lot of products with very few steps. And then the second thing is you want to make sure you're following best practices for pre-kit, which this is not breaking news. Heavy stuff goes on the bottom, light stuff goes on top. You don't put chips on the bottom. So those are just some basic things. Product flow through the warehouse, and then a dedicated pick line that follows good pre-kitting practices. And we also suggest that you pre-kit by zone. So beverages are pre-kitted separately than snacks. Most of our customers have to move the chocolate to a climate-controlled room in the summertime. OCS and fresh food, those are all different zones that can be pre-kitted separately, because the pre-kitting process for those different products are different. And that's why you don't want to do it all at one time.
Sure. So can you talk also a little bit about at what size operation is it a good time to consider moving to pre-kitting? And then maybe you start with an iPad, and then, then what's your next step when you're at Pick to Lights? Are there certain operator sizes that makes more sense to start looking at what the next step might be?
I hate answering questions like this with "it depends," but it depends. And I'll give you some guidelines. I do have some guidelines that I can offer. Normally, operators want to be able to get an ROI on technology in less than 18 months. And in some cases, they want an ROI less than 6 months because the technology changes that rapidly. So if that's the case, we normally have to see an operator have 2 or 3 routes before the ROI on our express system really becomes affordable. And it's not very expensive to start with, but you're still going to spend a few $1,000s to get the system up and running, and there's a monthly subscription. So usually 2 to 3 routes. One of my really good friends in this industry, Steve Kloster with Translucent, Steve will tell you, because he is a former operator, when you have 5 micro markets, you need to put Lightspeed Express in. So that came directly from Steve, and I believe him because he was a very successful operator. The next step up is for the Pick to Light solution, or our Fast Track product. And we normally look for somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 9 routes. And the reason 8 to 9 routes is used is we want to make sure you have enough labor in your warehouse manually pre-kitting with either express or paper to be able to save enough labor to get your ROI back in less than 18 months, because it's a bigger financial investment to do that. So 2 to 3 routes for the initial system, and then 8 to 9 routes for the bigger system. And again, Staci, I got exceptions to both of those rules. I got 12 route operators using the iPads, and I got 4 route operators using the light. So that's why I answered the question. It depends, because everybody's situation is a little different, and you know that firsthand with all your customers. You don't have 2 customers that are the same, do you?
Absolutely not. Everybody
Yeah.
does something a little bit differently. Just, with general best practices in mind, but there's always room for tweaking given what your scenario is.
How many times have you talked to an operator and the first thing out of their mouth is they go, "We do things differently"? Every single customer I've ever talked to says that. Nobody's different, because everybody is different. I mean, everybody's business is unique and different.
I like that. And it depends on that operator's customer base. Whatever
Yes.
the demands are of that customer is how they expect you to run your operation. So it's just like with us, how we tailor to the operator's needs, and we'll offer up some ideas for best practices. And at the end of the day, what works best for that operator's goals and expectations and their employees.
You are 100% right. An operator who has 80% of their business is pantry business runs a completely different operation than an operator who runs 100% vending and everything in between. Pantry business is completely different than vending. We got customers that still to this day bulk pick beverages for vending, but they'll pre-kit beverages for markets. But Pantry is typically cases and boxes, whereas vending is can be a bulk pick. Where market, it's everybody. Again, I'll say it again. Everybody's different, and it depends on
Sure.
what your business mix is. That will determine how you want to set up your warehouse.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. We've talked about operators who may not be pre-kitting now. Let's talk a little bit about operators who are pre-kitting and are, running through the motions and keeping their head above water, as we often do in this industry, because this guy is calling because his yogurt's out of date and your driver backed into a light pole and all those things that happen every day as an operator. Do you have any quick ideas for squeaking out extra efficiencies for somebody who might already be on as a pre-kitting operation? Any tips of the trade that you can offer up?
I do, and just don't ever ask me what my opinion is, because I have no problem telling people what it is. There are some commonalities that I have learned from dealing with operators across all sizes in this industry. And the number one question that I get asked is, how can I make my warehouse people more efficient? And the very first question I'll ask is, what are your current pick rates? And 9 times out of 10, they don't know. And for the 1 out of 10 that does know, the follow-up question is, do your employees know what their pick rates are? And 9 times out of 10, they don't. So I asked the follow-up question, how do you expect your employees to improve when they don't know what they're doing right now? Because everybody's mindset is, I've got all these orders I need to pick. I have 8 hours to do it. So as long as I'm done in 8 hours, life is good and everybody's happy. And that's not always the case if you can do those 8 hours of work in 6 hours. So step one is identify what your current pick rate that you want. Number two, make sure that your employees have the ability to hit that. And what I mean by that is, you cannot hold a warehouse person accountable for a specific pick rate if you expect them to stop in the middle of the day and put up the Vistar order, because those are two different warehouse responsibilities that have to be done, but they're different. And you can't come back to that employee and say, you didn't hit your numbers, when they spent 3 hours putting Vistar up or having to check in the Coke order. You got to make sure that they have the ability to be able to achieve that goal. Number three, make sure they have the tools necessary to do that and the training. If you want high active pick rates, when they start picking, they need to do nothing but pick. You can't expect them to stop in the middle of picking and have to go open up cases because they didn't prep enough cases for the line that morning. So number one, identify what you want. Number two, make sure your employees know that. And you can do that as simple as putting a whiteboard up in your warehouse and putting a target pick rate on it, and then record what the pick rate was every day this week so they can see if they're making progress or not. And I have said this for 10 years. The power of a Friday afternoon pizza party, if you hit a target, is a whole lot greater than most people realize. It's the simple things and the simple gestures that an owner can do or an operator can do for their employees that will go a long way toward them working just a little bit harder to get to the point where that 8 hours of work can be done in 6. Not that they go home early, because now they have time to go put up the Vistar order. But it's just, and there's nothing earth-shattering about what I just said, Staci. Those are all very easy that anybody can do, even if you're picking with paper. You can do exactly what I said if you're still picking with paper, if you want to improve your employees' productivity.
I love that idea. And having an incentive to and a goal to meet is just good human behavior, and that's, people like to reach a goal. So I think that's a great idea. One of the questions I get asked a lot in my business is, how do other operators pay their pickers and their warehouse staff? Do you have any insight on best practices or pros and cons for, is it pay by piece? Is it hourly? Or is it just some metrics where if you meet a goal, you get a pizza party, and if you meet another goal, you may get some other incentive?
I get asked that question a lot. And I am not aware of a lot of our customers that have a performance-driven compensation plan. So let's separate. Let's take drivers, right? So a lot of drivers make a base rate plus they make a commission. And it's very easy to track their commission because you can run the sales report on how much that route generated to be able to base that commission. Now, the driver has 95% ability to impact that. He got the wrong order, somebody screwed up in the warehouse, those aren't his fault. But for the most part, that driver controls every element and he can come back and say, hey, this product's not moving. Can we swap this out to see if we can generate more from this particular market? So he has a lot of control over that. When you switch over to the warehouse people, I am not a huge fan of individual performance-based compensation because it removes the teamwork aspect in a warehouse. A route driver's on a truck by himself, but if you're working in the warehouse with 5 other people, if you make it an individual game, then it becomes a competition, and I want to make more money than you, therefore I'm not going to help you. So I like the team concept, the team reward in the warehouse a whole lot better. Now you can have a pick rate for the team that everybody works together to hit, or you can have what we refer to as a cost per item pick. I think the best metric to be able to monitor your warehouse is if you take all of your warehouse payroll and you divide it by the total number of pieces picked, then that's going to give you a cost per item picked. And that number includes taking out the trash, breaking down cardboard, putting up Vistar, cleaning the bathrooms, all the things that warehouse people have to do. And then if you hit that target rate, it's very simple. The quicker we get done, the lower that cost per item picked is. And if we hit that target, that's when the team gets a reward, whether everybody gets a $25 Starbucks card or everybody gets the pizza party that we talked about or a $25 Visa card. It doesn't have to be a lot, but that reward as a team will force those guys to work together versus everybody competing against each other in the warehouse. So that would be my opinion on that. And that's probably why we don't have a lot of customers who do pay individual people based on their individual productivity.
That's great to hear. And I think that's a great answer. And we'll, a lot of our viewers, I think, will have that question and give them some things to think about. So David, just for fun, I have some speed questions for you. Okay. So think fast, ready? Bottle or can?
Oh, bottle.
Cash or credit?
Well, I'm a boomer, so I have cash with me all the time. So I'm old school.
Okay. Cream and sugar or black?
Oh, totally black. Why do you want to drink cream? Just give me a black coffee.
Me too. Me too. Vending, micro market, or smart cooler?
I gotta say smart cooler based on my employer. So yes, I'm going with a smart cooler.
It's revolutionary.
Yeah.
Sandwich or wraps?
Sandwich.
Paper pick tickets or Lightspeed?
Oh, come on. Come on. Lightspeed, baby. Lightspeed.
Of course. That was a softball question there at the end for you, but right answer. Right answer.
Absolutely. And every guest better answer the same question that way.
I'll hold them to it. As we wrap up our first episode, are there any final parting words you'd like to share with our viewers?
Actually, there is. I am on the Trade Show Advisory Committee for NAMA, and I have been on the committee now for going on 5 or 6 years. So I am somewhat involved in planning for the big NAMA show every year. And this year it's in Los Angeles. And a couple things I want to say about it. Number one, the area where the event's being held is right next to the Coliseum where the Lakers play, and LA Live is there. And I just want everybody to know that that part of LA is really exciting. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's very safe. And I would really, really encourage you to come and be a part of it for a second reason. We got to see all the new exhibitors that will be at NAMA this year, and there are 37 new exhibitors at NAMA. So there's 37 companies that have never been to our show, that have never met with you guys face to face. So if you have any interest in knowing what the next trend is going to be, what the new technology is, what the new products are, I really suggest that you buy a plane ticket, sign up for NAMA, and come see us in LA, April 22nd through the 24th.
It's an exciting venue, and I'm excited to be there. My company will be there. I'm sure I'll see you and many of you watching out there. So yeah, to echo what David said, We hope to see you there. It's a great time, a revolutionary time in the industry, and there will be a lot to see. And the networking that you will experience with people like David and other operators is priceless. It's invaluable. So thanks again, David, for joining us, and I'm sure we'll cross paths again on this podcast in the future.
Thank you very much for having me. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you.